Hey everybody, welcome to the Zevo Health Workplace Wellbeing Trends 2023. Today I have with me Sarah Keane, Health and Wellbeing Specialist, and myself, Health and Wellbeing Lead for Zevo Health. So what we're going to be covering today is 10 high-level topics and themes that we think are going to be coming up. But to start with, Sarah's going to run you through some of the challenges in the environment and the market at the moment. And that's going to help us get an understanding of why we've picked these as our trends for the year.
Yeah, thanks, JP. So look, it's news to nobody with regard to the accelerated change and the uncertainty we've all been confronted by over the last couple of years. There are kind of main domains that change is creating a lot of disruption for organizations and employers. The economic uncertainty, the changing work models that have arisen, the rapidly changing face of technology with automation of workplaces, integration of automation, and now AI really coming to the forefront. We're seeing big changes across the workforce with rapid globalization, as well as the integration of Gen Z, that younger generation coming into the workplace that would have come in at a very kind of turbulent and unusual time. And then lastly, we're also, of course, seeing that demand for greater transparency regarding an organization's impact on their community, as well as all stakeholders and the environment as well. And the problems that are resulting from that, then we're seeing ongoing concerning trajectory regarding burnout among workers, high attrition. So that really, that great resignation, continuing that trend where people are leaving their jobs far more easily and readily than they ever would have in the past. Quiet quitting, so where individuals are staying present with an organisation but have lost that kind of motivation and drive. We're seeing culture values mismatch. So we have a lot of organisations that maybe have ideal values and there's disparity between their operant values and how do companies bridge that gap between what they really aspire and want to do and actually what's happening on a ground level. And then lastly, what we're seeing is that this endeavour to have a sort of generalised one-size-fits-all approach to solving some of these issues really doesn't hold up anymore. And the real strong requirement for companies to get more granular and really drill into specific issues and target their solutions accordingly. So before we launch into the top 10 trends, just for any viewers who maybe aren't familiar with our work until now, to realise where we get our information from. So we have a team of wellbeing consultants and wellbeing specialists that are engaged in academic research and continually reviewing most recent publications. Maybe in a more relevant context, we have our direct client feedback and experience. We also have an annual wellbeing survey that we launch every October. So we have insights from that to share, as well as market analytics, looking at the most common search terms and what clients are really interested in looking at, and also our on-site feedback from our affiliate network and our wellbeing specialists on site who relay their findings back to us periodically throughout the year. So an amalgamation of all these sources has informed these top 10 trends. So JP, do you want to launch into the first one?
Yeah, I guess it's to no surprise that burnout's our top one here. It's the trend that builds momentum. You know, it's been building slowly in the background, 2021, 2022, 2023. Check out LinkedIn or any of your news sources this week, and you're seeing a huge amount of posts about Jacinda Ardern, the New Zealand Prime Minister, who mentioned, I know what this job takes. I know that I no longer have enough in the tank to do it justice. It's that simple. You know, we're seeing this idea of emotional exhaustion just permeate through the entire landscape, and it's going down to, and it's, you know, it's not leaving any organization untouched. So I think regardless of your organization you're in, it's something that you do need to give a little bit of resources and a bit of understanding of how it's impacting your particular company. Isn't that right, Sarah?
Yeah, I think in 2023, what we're really seeing is that deeper assessment of what is the root cause of the burnout. And while, of course, that psychoeducation piece and equipping employees with the awareness of how to manage boundaries and workload is really, really helpful. We're seeing now that companies are taking that deeper dive and really looking at systemic factors that are contributing to this burnout. So with the ISO psychosocial safety assessment that was published 2 years ago, we're just seeing employers really, as I said at the start, drill down into the core issues and begin to really look at health and wellbeing policy, formulating a more constructive and effective strategy over 3 to 5 years, and then allowing their programs to arise from that, rather than a sort of reactive approach that I think has been very prevalent in recent years.
Now onto leadership skills, and I guess this is what we're looking at around embedding employee well-being as a core value in an organization, and really where the advocacy for well-being is coming from. Is it coming from the bottom up? Is it coming from the top down? Or is it permeating all the way through an organization? And it's really where we're targeting these well-being initiatives. I think more and more so that we're going to get more effective targeting if we go for leadership and management when we're looking at these new policies, these new structures, these new skill sets that we can apply to organizations. Am I right in saying that, Sarah?
Definitely, we're seeing huge improvements in that area. A lot of companies are invested in upskilling their leaders, and that's reflected in our National Wellbeing Survey just last October, where we saw a lot of respondents actually felt deeply cared for by their line manager. Where there was a little bit more of a gap was that sense of care didn't necessarily translate to the organisation as a whole. So what we're looking at with leadership skills is the continued progression we've made in recent years in terms of that compassionate leadership, but also on educating people managers around how to facilitate well-being for their team and colleagues. But it's also, again, that piece echoing from what I just mentioned in the burnout phase, around really supporting senior leadership and having that oversight and that kind of long-term planning with well-being of the employees at the fore.
And that brings us nicely onto social connection. And this might be a little bit of a hangover from the pandemic era, but according to Microsoft's research, which polled 20,000 of their full-time employees in the globe between July and August just past, the number one motivational factor to get them back into the office was not a gym or table tennis or, free food. It was the opportunity to connect with their employees. So I think this ability to set up the work week that we can really improve engagement and social connection is going to be a huge thing and really influential towards individuals' well-being and wellness. So a trend that's really growing in popularity.
Absolutely. And on that, I guess what we're seeing for the year ahead is supporting employers how to implement that in an organic way, in a way that doesn't feel forced upon the employees, but that actually is a powerful invitation or is appealing to them. We're seeing things, again, ties into burnout. That sense of social connection can be a phenomenal buffer against that emotional and psychological exhaustion. So things like having relational breaks, where we're encouraging not only that employees take regular breaks throughout their workday, but that some of those breaks are to connect peer-to-peer or with their colleagues for that additional kind of support. As well as other many avenues, and we see companies setting up wellbeing committees to have more events and social engagement opportunities for their colleagues.
And not to draw this one out at all, but I guess, all of these are going to be connected to not only well-being and wellness, but when we look after our employees and our staff, it permeates into improved productivity. And the researcher looking at some of this for Microsoft, and I quote, "When people trust each other, they take risks together." And that's helpful with innovation and creativity. So it's going to be so supportive when we're looking at these social connection pieces and everything we're talking today in terms of how the organization actually works and how productivity is going to be improved.
So the next big domain that we see getting more attention in 2023 is the area of women's health. In our national wellbeing survey, it came in as number 1 in terms of the area of greatest interest for more webinars and education around, in particular, topics like menopause and fertility and first-time parents. So we really feel that the general kind of high-level approach that maybe has been adopted in this domain till now no longer cuts it. People want greater support and more specific support in this area, which is really positive to see that shift.
Okay, and then running in parallel to that is going to be those pieces around men's health. We're seeing these requests come in all the time from clients. So we're putting a big focus, and I think a lot of organizations should be putting a big focus on these unique, tailored solutions. We know that male suicide rates are 3.5 times higher in Ireland compared to the females. We know the traditional pieces around men, we think about that disassociation from emotions, that stigma around asking for help, and even that stigma about being emotionally vulnerable. So I guess a lot of this is just bringing it to the fore in your organization, being open to talking about it, asking questions, hosting different events, and putting some resources in it is going to be, I think, really beneficial for a lot of organizations.
Opening up the dialogue more and having that peer-to-peer support very much on the forefront in the coming year.
Mm-hmm. Then we're moving into, again, running in parallel, probably women's health, men's health, onto parenting here. So just looking at the challenges of parenting, especially with full-time employment, we often hear about these lack of care, or that self-care piece is often hard to connect with yourself when you are looking after and caring for someone else or a bunch of other people. We know about the challenges around isolation in many instances as a parent, and the toll even a lot of these and reducing the amount of self-care can have on your performances in work and your productivity. And then, of course, we have these trainings coming up that we're trying to target around conscious parenting. And maybe, Sarah, you could introduce the viewers into a little bit more about conscious parenting.
Yeah, JB, the conscious parenting really, I guess, is an advocated approach to support parents to manage the additional stressors that they may experience as caregivers while juggling that with the work demands. And in essence, it's just adopting a more mindful, self-aware disposition in the parent-child dynamic. So this is an emerging field. It's really in essence, the application of mindfulness practice, except in a parenting context. And of course, we're all very well versed at this stage, or certainly many of us are, on the many benefits of mindfulness in enhancing our health and well-being. So it's certainly an area that we think will be growing in coming years, that parents really require that additional support. And this same mindful meditative approach actually bridges into other domains. So what we're also seeing as an upcoming trend in 2023 is really tackling the whole topic of addiction. And addiction, perhaps the antithesis of it, is that sort of conscious living piece where you have more awareness around your choices, greater self-awareness, and greater capacity to choose in alignment with your values and the direction you want to go. In contrast to that, a lot of us are caught in reflexive default behaviors, and more traditionally, addiction was also always associated with things like alcohol, tobacco, drug use. As you are probably well aware, we're seeing the rise of more subtle, insidious addictions, such as the use of technology and high levels of screen time, particularly in our children and teens. So in this domain, again, we're looking at not only psychoeducation, but also creating workshops and peer-to-peer support to facilitate greater self-awareness and coursing new trajectories in this domain. I know in relation to alcohol, we can't ignore that either. JP, you're aware of many initiatives and endeavours that are kind of becoming more popular and gaining momentum.
Yeah, certainly. You know, we're in the late January, early February at the moment, and a lot of people have been trying out dry January. They might have tried a sober October in the past, or you're hearing these terms around sober curious. Myself, after Christmas and probably enjoying a few too many wines, have went for a dry January, although it's been tempting, to have a wine at dinner and turn that into a damp January, a term I heard this week. And we're seeing that, and what we're also seeing is a good bit of generational change. According to Alcohol Change, a quarter of people aged 18 to 34, that younger group, are planning to abstain from drinking during that past January that we've just seen, compared to what only 10% of people aged 55 and over. And it's a similar picture for people who want to reduce their alcohol for the entire year of 2023. 40% of 18 to 34-year-olds wanted to do that, as opposed to only 20% of 55-year-olds. So we're seeing that generational change, and that's kind of permeating through all the topics. We are seeing those generational difference across the board. So it's something just to lock into your head there when you're thinking about topics and the demographics of your particular organization.
But also add on that, JP, for a lot of people who are moving away from drinking alcohol and want to explore a healthier lifestyle, this links back in with that social connection piece. And sometimes alcohol is synonymous with, having the crack and having that kind of social connection and fun when you're out. So organizations perhaps organizing more social events that aren't related or linked to alcohol, and the old traditional sort of office parties or quarterly celebrations, actually moving into different contexts, going for group hikes and more natural, healthy lifestyle settings rather than the more traditional scheme.
Yeah, and even to give you a peek into how the sausage is made at Zevo Health, we put out some surveys in our internal groups and to see what people were interested in doing. And yeah, the socializing around alcohol was actually quite far down the list compared to other avenues. So it might be interesting for organizations to survey your staff and see what they want to have those social connections looking like. As you say, Sarah, a really important thing. Then we're moving on to nutrition, of course. Always, and again, it came up in our well-being survey that nutrition is constantly just somewhere that people like to target. And it's been often targeted in a lot of organizations in their well-being strategies, but oftentimes you've probably all sat through a nutrition session where they talk about macros and the understanding of proteins and fats and all these kind of really important fundamental pieces, but actually using them as tools to support yourself can often be the gap between that knowledge and that impact. So what we're looking at a little bit more is that conscious eating piece, that intuitive eating piece. Am I right in saying that, Sarah?
Yeah, bridging the gap between what we know and then what we're actually doing. As you say, a lot of people are very well versed on healthy eating principles these days. But what we are looking at is that biopsychosocial approach, where you're looking at the choice architecture of your home or your workplace. Is it easy for you to make the healthier choice around food? As well as you mentioned, the kind of conscious eating, being more aware about your beliefs, your narratives around food choices. What motivates you to eat? Are you really hungry, or is it more habit? So it's a fascinating subject. Again, we're really focusing, and we see in 2023, people are more interested in bridging that gap and actually applying it in their lives and having the kind of behavior change support to facilitate that.
Fantastic. And then on to our final trend, it's this idea of data overload. I think probably a lot of the viewers watching this right now, there's some sort of tracking going on around your wellness, around your wrist, around your finger, in your pocket. Biometrics and the tracking of data is becoming hugely popular, and it's not just steps anymore. It's not just tracking your heart rate. We're going into a huge amount of sensors, and it's only growing. Things like skin temperature, things like blood oxygen, checking your HRV, your stress. And they're starting to connect a lot of these to not only AI and algorithms around how that's actually impacting you, but it's actually starting to connect into how your mood is, how your psychological state is, and that's the direction things are going. But I guess all of this sounds great, but there is probably a other half to this story, isn't there, Sarah?
Yeah, in terms of where we can get obsessed with metrics and figures. So like we saw this maybe 20 years ago with the rise in popularity of the likes of Weight Watchers, where people become obsessed with that figure on the scale instead of actually perhaps dropping a dress size and feeling more energized and feeling better. So it's like the same concept, except now people are fixated on getting the perfect sleep or overtly obsessing over the metrics that they're seeing on their phone and disregarding their own kind of maybe intuitive or self-aware sense of how their body is and how they're feeling. So again, it's always a fine balance. There's that window where we can use something to optimize our quality of life, and then it can sometimes surpass that and go into with anything can run into sort of obsession. So it's just awareness. And I do think another important piece around this to flag is for employers, when handling the health data of their employees, there's going to be a lot more extra care and kind of ethical considerations going forward to factor in. So this is an area of well-being that we really think is going to get a lot more attention in the coming 12 months.
Yeah, something I need to look at. I can't believe a lot of mornings I wake up and I ask my phone how I'm feeling or how I've slept each night. So it's something that I'm seeing a trend in myself. So if you're seeing it in yourself, it's probably something that's all the way through a lot of people in your organization. So something potentially to look at for sure. And you're probably asking yourself, okay, that's a lot of different topics, a lot of different trends. How does that turn into my 2023? How can I structure that? How can I pick the right things? And I guess we've thought about that a lot internally and how organizations can really connect the dots here. So I guess, Sarah, maybe can you take the guys through the annual plan structure as a potential solution here?
Yeah, I guess for certain organizations that maybe don't have the budget to be investing in maybe deep dives in assessing employee well-being and creating strategy and policy might require a more kind of light, accessible approach initially. So we've kind of structured annual plans based on these themes that we see requiring attention. And we've got kind of 3 phases, where phase 1 is just that super light psychoeducation piece, where it's one webinar each quarter tackling issues that are most prevalent and working with the assistance of our sales team. You can hone in on what areas you think your employees would be most interested in exploring. And then we've got a deeper dive where we look at a 12-part program. So it's 12 sessions, 1 a month over the course of the whole year. And this is strategically designed in a way that builds that momentum and progresses over the year. Again, can be specific to one domain. If an organization really wants to focus on mental health, or have noticed that maybe work-related musculoskeletal disorders are very prevalent in their demographic, they can really hone in on these issues. Or they can go more general, high level, and even have a program that touches on many of the topics we have covered today. So again, with the support of our sales team, you can hone in on what area would be most beneficial for you. And then lastly, for that kind of additional, let's say, support for the employees that maybe require that kind of personalization and to really help them integrate the information, our higher level program includes day clinics. So the day clinics complement the trainings that we cover each month and allow employees to reflect on how that information might be applied to their life and common barriers or obstacles that they might experience. So it really takes it to the next level. And these are, again, our solutions for companies that maybe small to medium sized that don't really have huge budget at the moment, facing economic uncertainty, but still want to tackle these issues and support their employees in the best possible way.
Yeah, fantastic. And I guess to reiterate, these 10 themes that we've displayed today are not the actual trainings. We have a huge library and up-to-date trainings that tackle a lot of these themes. So if there's particular themes there that jump out to you, you know, getting in touch with us at hello@zevohealth.com, having a conversation with some of our team, and they can assign or have a discussion with you about, look, if burnout's a specific challenge, if addiction's a different challenge, what's a good approach based off that as well. So there's plenty of different options, and we can tailor things completely to the challenges of your organization. Well, guys, that's it. Thank you so much for watching today. Whether you take any of these forward or not, hopefully they've planted some seeds and will help support you and your organization for a happy and healthy 2023.
Thank you.